Hi everyone, good afternoon. This is the final paper session of SysMus17, and I'd like to introduce to you Dawn, who's investigating beat perception in people with and without Parkinson's disease.
Hi, I'm very happy to be here, but also aware it is the last of a very packed session, so I'll try and keep it light for you. This is just the beginning of my postdoctoral work, so we don't have a full set of results for you at the moment, but I thought I'd kind of share our approach. So first of all, just in case people haven't come across Parkinson's disease before, it's a progressive neurological disorder characterized by motor but also non-motor symptoms, and it's caused by a loss of nerve cells in the substantia nigra, which is a subcortical area of the brain, basal ganglia, which leads to a reduction in the production or the ability to produce dopamine. So symptoms include tremor, that can be either just on one side or on both sides, in the arms or the legs, and that can also involve speech difficulties from the motor problems, but it's actually also to do with all the rhythms in the body. So the digestion is also affected, and sleep, and together these can combine to cause some depression for people. So if you have kind of lost control of your voluntary movement, why would you turn towards music and dance to help you? We're seeing a lot of studies about this. So we know that music helps kind of, basically there are sort of other areas or different pathways in the brain that possibly work as a compensatory mechanism. But we have this paradox because whilst we see that it seems to be helping some people, there are large individual differences. So people are comparing dance studies where it might be tango or it might be dance movement therapy. It's quite hard to kind of understand what is working and what's not working in the way that music and dance are helping. And we also have this problem that we know that there is a problem in extracting the underlying beat for some people with Parkinson's, but not for everybody. So rather than conduct another RCT that has dance involved in it, which we do have a Dance for Parkinson's group at my university, we thought we would look at the role of the heard and the observed and try to unpick the mechanisms. So if you go and see people with Dance for Parkinson's, they're having auditory cues, visual cues, and also kind of tactile cues, touching the other people. And maybe it's these things together that are providing a sort of guidance for movement. So our research question is why do musical and dance-based interventions benefit some people with Parkinson's disease but not others? Are the underlying mechanisms kind of linking perception and production? Are the problems physical or experiential? Does music training or previous dance training help? Or are the findings that are occurring, because they're not equivocal, are they based on the stimuli that is being used or the method and the way in which the study is designed? So we're focusing at the moment on auditory cues, really linking rhythm, perception and production, and also spontaneous motor tempo. Not enough is known about that in terms of the Parkinson's population at the moment. And we're also interested in the effect of timing. So Yvonne Delavoye-Torel has been producing some interesting work looking at continuous and discrete movement and perhaps a particular tempo switch where you kind of take over, the automaticity of the movement takes over. And that's what we're hearing anecdotally from the people with Parkinson's, that when they're in the dance class, they feel free and they don't feel like they have to think about their movements. So we're looking at quite a range of tempi, but also the kind of functional hierarchy of music. So ideas like joint accent structure, how easy does the beat have to be for people with Parkinson's? Do the same rules apply? We just don't know at the moment. So hopefully being a musician came in quite handy, particularly a drummer, because one of the other problems that we have methodologically is asking people with Parkinson's to tap, for example, in tapping and synchronization studies, a small area is quite difficult if you've got tremor. So I have been employing something called a stomp box, which people may have seen with musicians like Ed Sheeran, and you can kind of tap on it with your foot whilst you're playing acoustic guitar, and it's basically a contact microphone inside a wooden box, but it makes a nice bass drum sound. For us, it means that people with Parkinson's can hit anywhere on it and we'll get a signal, and we can just then put it on the floor and also pick up foot tapping, because maybe finger tapping, it's not really that related to music. People tend to nod their head or tap their foot anyway. Maybe for people with Parkinson's, if you have tremor, it's not the best way to collect data. So that's the way that we're looking at that. I don't know if I can get this working. So it doesn't matter where or how people are tapping, we're still getting the signal, which is really important. And here's the example of the floor. But we wanted to take it a step further, and although there are many, many studies that look at gait in Parkinson's as an outcome, we wanted to look at something more specifically related to dance. And so I've been using this idea that when you go to the dance class, you can see that people can kind of do basically dad dancing. They can walk up and down on the spot, and we can gather this data. So we're not doing it using motion capture at the moment, or we will. You can see here, can you tell which of these people actually has Parkinson's? There's one thing that gives it away, and that's their hand movements, but not their feet movement. So we thought that this was a really good way of actually kind of looking at the idea of embodied movement and also being able to extract some continuous data. Trying to get on to the next slide. So we're using some BioPack heel and toe strikes. Because we're not collecting date, we're not collecting the toe part of the data, just the heel strikes. And we're asking people to walk up and down or tap or use their toe tapping whilst they're listening to metronome stimuli and matched musical stimuli, but we're using naturalistic instrumental music excerpts so that we're trying to keep the confounds of lyrics out of it. And the way that we're doing this is a typical entrainment continuation task with one novel element, which is we've added a re-entrainment zone. Now, this was really important because people with Parkinson's fatigue very quickly, and so you can't do the same kind of experiments with loads and loads of trials. You have to try and condense it. So actually what I've done by doing this is embed a kind of repeated measures, and it will also help us see if there's a learning effect. So would they be better the second time around? So our tempi ranges are also to do with naturalistic music. We couldn't really go much lower than 69 beats per minute because it's quite hard to walk up and down like in a kind of dancing way that slowly. But we're looking at the range of tempi and also the modalities. We're also looking at this in a healthy population, thank you, so that we can actually have some kind of comparative data. So another aspect is to try not to waste any data with patients who are coming in, thank you, because it's really unethical. And so we don't want to kind of find out whether they can entrain or not. We're providing them with the beats. So this is an example of the kind of thing they listen to. Oh, where's it gone? There we go. See that we're providing the underlying tempo. We didn't want kind of it to be a study about that. And even though there are different musical structures, different kind of melodic phrases coming in, actually I pilot tested all of these kind of musical excerpts to see that generally people found them easy to tap along with. So I'm going to give you an example now that you can try out yourself. So it's a bit like there's a game on Radio 4 where you sing and then they stop the music and then you keep singing and see if you're in time. So this is an example so that you can try it, so you can tap your foot or your hand, or if you want to have a dance, feel free. It's the end of the conference. So if I can find the... No? There it is. Keep going. It's paused itself. Don't know why it's done that. Oh, sorry. Anyway, I'm sorry that didn't work. I have no idea why not. I was like, it should have come back in by now. As you can see, there's quite an interesting group entrainment effect. So the point of explaining those were our kind of extremes of tempi. You can imagine I had to try and find a range of stimuli where older people wouldn't necessarily know the music, hence the Marilyn Manson, though some people still did, and younger people wouldn't necessarily know all the music. So it actually took a long time to try and get that corpus of stimuli together. So really we're looking at the effect of stimuli here. So if people with Parkinson's can entrain to the music better than the metronome, which the literature suggests not, it should be the simplest form, it should be the metronome. What is it about the music that is actually helping them? Is there a familiarity effect? Do they have to know the music? And is that how they're keeping kind of the loop going during the continuation? And are they able to come back in time? Or is it a pleasure effect? Does it matter if it likes it, or possibly a displeasure effect may have kind of the reverse? And I said that we're looking at beat perception as well, so we've included the Goldsmith's beat alignment test so that we can link together for the first time their ability to perceive as well as their ability to produce in the 3 different modalities across all those tempi. We've also got the general level of musical ability, and we're developing something called the Dance Sophistication Index, which is a sort of analogue, although as it turns out it can't be an exact analogue of the Music Sophistication Index, and the mini mental state examination just for cognitive stability. In people with Parkinson's, you need to show their medication actually isn't having a detrimental effect there. The National Adult Reading Test, which is partial replication of Jessica Grand's work, and the Unified Parkinson's Ratings Disease Scale. So it takes quite a long time to get this data, hence kind of reducing the stimuli. So some preliminary results. You can see there's no significant difference at all in terms of the beat alignment test. And unfortunately the students are not as intelligent as our older people, which is quite worrying. But you can see in the Goldsmith's general music sophistication index, actually there is something showing up with the people with Parkinson's. Now that might be the level of musical training, we don't know yet, so we're going to be able to look at the factors involved in that and see what's happening there, and that's helping us develop the dance sophistication index as well. The spontaneous motor tempo that I have so far, this is just Parkinson's and age-matched controls, is very interesting and very good news for us because we could see there was no difference between any of the modalities, or no significant difference. They're not, the toe tapping, finger tapping, and embodied kind of marching are all kind of coming out the same, but also no significant difference between the experimental groups. So that looks very nice as a headline, but actually what you find when you look at the data is there is a big difference in the way that people with Parkinson's are tapping. So they might tap the same amount of taps in the minute, but it's not happening in the same way. So I have, 1 minute, yeah. I have a little video, if anyone wants to see it later, of the people with Parkinson's dancing, so you can see what it's like if anyone hasn't come across it. But I would like to thank our 3 groups of collaborators, Yvonne Delavoye-Toral and Laurent Ott in Lille in France, and Daniel and Guido at Goldsmiths, and also Dan Cameron and Jessica Gran at Western. I've been very lucky, and the organisers have agreed for me to send out an email with you if you want to take part in the Dance Sophistication Index. I spoke with Daniel yesterday, and we thought you would be. We'd like to offer you the opportunity to win the Samsung Galaxy Tab as well if you want to. So Peter's going to send around an email later with the link to that, and then we're going to close it next week. So we've got 500 people already. We'd like to try and get up to 700 if we can. So please take part if you'd like to. And thank you for letting me share with you our work on Parkinson's and dance.
Does anyone have any questions?
Put this up in case it's of interest.
Hello? Yeah, just one question. You said there were no differences. Sorry. Oh.
There was the lady there first, sorry.
I can hear myself. Oh, God. Yes.
We can all hear you too.
You said there were no differences in spontaneous motor tempo between Parkinson's and neurotypicals.
No significant differences.
Okay,
there is a slight shift downwards, and in some areas, like a wider range, but it's still only 9. We've got 9 Parkinson's, 9 age-matched control, and 38 young adult neurotypicals at the moment. So it might be that when we have more data, there is, but actually looking at it, it seems pretty regular. It's only in the variation of the way they're tapping that the difference occurs.
Right. Okay. That answers the question.
Thanks.
Thanks for your talk. This might be a silly question. I don't know Parkinson's very well, but why do you think that there isn't so much of a difference when they're moving their feet as opposed to their hands?
Well, there's something happening when they're dancing. So my job as a postdoc is to try and unpick why is dance helping some people and others. And definitely some people really struggle with it. But actually, when we've asked people to do this study, I mean, I tried it out on people first. It came from watching them in the dance class, and they really can, as you could see, do this kind of movement. Sometimes it's very difficult. If they've got a tremor in their dominant hand, then I kind of just let them try it out and see, well, which hand do you want to try and tap with? And it might be that that data is really not very usable. It's not really reflecting their ability. But interestingly, if they can do the toe tapping, they generally don't finish all the marching. And if they can do all of the marching, they can't do the toe tapping. So as I say, I've only got 9 people so far. I've got another 11 people to collect. Hopefully that will kind of start to show us. And we've got the UPDRS as well, so we'll be able to pick out which aspects of Parkinson's are particularly associated. Because, people always are saying, well, what should I do if I have Parkinson's? And, you can't just blanket say, well, go dancing, because actually if you can't pick up an underlying beat and you can't do these things, it's not really going to be beneficial to you. So does that answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really, really interesting topic. I was wondering if you observed that some music or which musical feature might work better than others. Is there some type of rhythmic structural feature or audio feature that seems to relate or seems to explain the movements? Or do you know what I mean?
One of the papers I hope to come out of this will be a kind of power and energy kind of spectral analysis of the music. At the end of every, not metronome obviously because it's dead boring doing it to a metronome, but at the end of every music stimuli we ask them firstly, did you know that music? And they can say yes, no, or not sure. And how much did you like that music? And then we can first of all see if there's, so for example, one of them is a sort of instrumental section of Beat It or something like that, which everyone seems to know, and everyone's like, oh, I really liked that one because they knew it. So the next stage then will be to kind of actually analyse what's happening in that music, and I'm hoping to contact some of the people I met at RPPW who are doing the kind of beat extraction data to see if they can analyse these different things, if we see an effect of one specific song perhaps. I mean, I tried to get all of the stimuli to really reflect a range of musical kind of genres, and as you could hear just from those two extremes, the Art of Noise one, there are different things going on, but it vary on the beat. Whereas with the Marilyn Manson, there's all sorts of other kind of like sub-beats happening that could really confuse people with Parkinson's, but I think we don't know enough about that yet. We know a little bit about it in the healthy brain, but not quite so much in Parkinson's.
You should look at bass frequencies, I guess.
Yeah.
That's probably... Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much. Do you think there could be a learning effect?
Yes.
Okay, so when the patients imagine the music, that they can walk normally?
Well, this is one of the things we want to look at. So, if you're going to send somebody out with Parkinson's with an iPod on, they're not going to listen to a metronome. That's okay. It might help lengthen some people's stride. That's what the literature suggests, but it's going to be much more beneficial if you can put together a playlist that's maybe matched to their spontaneous motor tempo in music they like or no, because one of the things that happens with Parkinson's is people have gait freeze, so they'll be walking and stop, and they can't just make themselves start. So possibly if we can find that there is a familiarity effect, if they know it, if they can train to the music, they could imagine the music even if they don't have it there, and that might help unfreeze them. I mean, I'm really interested in applied psychology, so most of what I'm doing is to try and actually help on a practical level, and to understand why it's working for some and not for others. But yes, I think that we'll also see a learning effect within the experiment, so even on the songs they don't know so well, except for when they don't like them, I think, they will see that they're able to entrain better the second time. And I think that will be really important if that is true, because a lot of dance practitioners, for example, who work with people with Parkinson's, change the music quite frequently, and it might be really important to actually keep kind of, in terms of procedural memory as well, keep the same music and the same sequences. I certainly know from our dance classes that the people with Parkinson's really like the songs that they know and the movements they know, and you can see their tremors kind of reducing as they're doing that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi. That's loud. So 2 questions. One, I was wondering if you could measure head nodding as another way of measuring spontaneous motor tempo. And then the second question was, in some of the parents of the babies I got in, I measured their spontaneous motor tempo across drumming, tapping and walking. And my measure of walking was rubbish, but I didn't actually find that their walking correlated with their drumming and their tapping. And I was wondering whether within yours you see that all of your spontaneous motor tempo measures across individuals correlate with each other and it's coming out quite consistent, or whether you're seeing that they're having different spontaneous motor tempos across actions.
No, it's very consistent at the moment, but I'm kind of comparing different numbers, so and I think that's interesting because nearly, like, the data showing that gait entrainment, for example, works well. It's always done on like 12% more or 20% more, which is kind of a strange thing to do, because actually when people walk faster they tend to take shorter steps, and also some people with Parkinson's suffer from festination, where they're walking and they get shorter and shorter and faster, and that's why they fall. So sorry, I think I've gone off the point there. It seems to be that this way of understanding movement in this walking up and down kind of way is quite important to the dance aspect of it, and that's showing something different than the gait aspect of it. But at the moment, there's no difference between modalities or between groups, which I think is hopefully helpful to people.
That's good.
Thank you.
Another round of applause.